let's move on to this, and I think we've already had some discussion around what are the disease states that remain high on the payer radar. So we talked about oncology, RA has been mentioned, MS, and then this kind of bucket of orphan drugs, or kind of this orphan category as well. You know, I feel like this has been the kind of the same topics. Maybe you add cardiovascular in there as well, and then diabetes just from a volume perspective. But have things really changed over the last 5 or 10 years in terms of the categories that you all are focusing on as a health plan? Have there been any new categories or categories that have dropped off from kind of what the focus has been for the health plan?
But yeah, I'll say that the price has been opioids and pain management, which very much in the news, and it's a high volume class, and it's just taken up a lot of effort, lots of activity. Obviously, when it comes to total cost, Andrew, the classes you listed are very front and center, and it hasn't changed. But I think everybody's been surprised by the storm around opioids, and so just a lot of focus on management and volume, and so I think that would be the only change that I'd comment on.
Okay.
I would say,
and Fred, okay.
I'm sorry. I would say from our perspective, though, Hep C sort of has fallen lower on the priority, because I think we probably have gotten a very good management in place for those products, and obviously there's been a huge price erosion for those therapies as well. So Hep C doesn't come up as much now in discussion. There are other categories that do come up more, not to say they're going to be top 5, but with the migraine products, there's obviously renewed attention there for the preventative therapy, CGRPs, and obviously some of the therapies being studied for the acute side as well. And NASH is another one, too, that potentially could come up because there's of the extensive pipeline for NASH as well.
Got it. Okay. Donald, anything different from your perspective, or anything you would add that's falling off or gaining traction?
No, I would actually say that those are two very good areas. I think opioids and the crisis and our response to that has been, we've been working on that for years, and we continue to work on it, but I think we've had good progress. Hep C has made dramatic improvements in terms of the cost point. We still have backlog of patients we're working through, but have made substantial progress. And in real-world evidence, I mean, you're getting 95, 96, 97% of patients cured, which is amazing. If you go back long enough, this was not the way things worked more than 10 years ago. So if you had to think about outcomes, for the most part, we're seeing good outcomes with the Hep C products and the interventions that have been made. And I think lastly, we are always looking at chronic disease management in general. So diabetes, cardiovascular, as you mentioned, are things that are always high focus. Asthma, COPD continue to be at the top of the list. And try to manage those costs, but also be smart about managing the costs with maybe a focus on the best appropriate drug therapy, and then looking to minimize any institutional costs or emergency room costs or hospitalization.
So a couple of years ago, if you think about severe asthma, that was one that was mainly Xolair as a biologic, and then with these other biologics having entered the market, Nucala, Syncare, has it been, there was kind of payer anxiety, I think, around severe asthma blowing up as a category. Has that happened for any of you, or has it been fairly unchanged?
Well, I think you stated it right in the sense there was payer anxiety, and as the biologics come out at $30,000 a pop for a class, potentially a relatively large group, although in this case for the more severe asthmatics, we've seen incremental use of these products, but it hasn't blown up or hasn't caused us any significant financial concern. But it's out there, and it could increase, but I haven't seen it be significant yet.
Yeah, I would agree with Donald on that one, that it hasn't obviously we pay attention to it. Dupixent's going to get the indication, so,
Yeah.
obviously that would bring a little bit more attention to it, but I don't know. I haven't had any major concerns with any of those products, sort of, in terms of excessive use, inappropriate use, or anything like that. So, I mean, I've heard that those products are really reserved to about 3% of the total asthmatic population, and 3 to 5, and we're kind of seeing that, right? We're not seeing 20% of our asthmatics requesting biologics.
Okay. Fred, maybe kind of jumping back to the opioid and pain management point, and as Donald noted, there's kind of been a response for years kind of about how the health plan is approaching that. I guess what has your plan been doing specifically around opioid management? Are there programs you're putting in place specifically, or just what are you doing specifically to kind of help manage the category?
There have been a couple of things, I think, that have been the primary focus. One has certainly been quantity limits, and that's been in place now for a while and fairly easy to implement, and not all that controversial. The second thing is really profiling, provider and member profiling, actually, and a lot more attention on referral of overutilizing members into appropriate behavioral management programs. The whole behavioral therapy area is it's just really exploding. There's a tremendous increase in need and in use in many aspects, but so it's certainly been the opioid problem has certainly driven a good part of that. I think those are actually the main approaches in terms of formulary per se and preferring abuse deterrent formulations. The discussion, those drugs are there. But primarily the approach so far has been the things that I mentioned.
Okay, got it. And, I'm sure each of you has been involved with value message testing. I know that I've kind of run through those exercises with you as well. And historically, when I've shared a pain message or even an opioid message about, cost savings with reducing opioids or things of that nature, it hasn't gone over well, and that may be due to numerous reasons. But I guess, do you think that that's changing? I mean, should manufacturers that have a product that can reduce opioids or can reduce pain, is that something that they should push forward in messaging to payers?
Well, I think the issue is they don't have any real-world evidence, right? A lot of it's based on liking and so the clinical trial data. So I think once we get drugs that maybe get that, Tier 4, Category 4 rating by the FDA with real-world evidence to show, that could help. But again, I think the issue is, like you said, it's complicated because it's not like one single thing is going to change this, right? It's not one single thing isn't going to solve the issue here. So, but I think if somebody has real-world evidence or more evidence, I would say that yes, I would recommend that they obviously provide that information. But if everybody has the same level of data in terms of liking and less likely to abuse or misuse, it's hard to sort of separate out products because those value messages would apply to all of them.
Yeah. Okay.